Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? It's Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful Easter weekend, and lots of news to discuss today. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, of course, I think the biggest story of the day is that Pope Francis has died. Now, this came as a shock to me. Just yesterday, I was on Newsmax doing a hit, and the story right before I went on was J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, exchanging gifts in a visit with the Pope. And they were going on and on about how the Pope was feeling so wonderful. He had been on assisted breathing devices and came off of them because he was doing better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess when it's your time to go, it's your time to go, right? So the cause of death for the Pope has been revealed by the Vatican. Pope Francis suffered a stroke about an hour after getting out of bed this morning and died within minutes after spending his final days fighting to the end to be with his people, according to sources saying that he was adamant about showing up for Easter Mass and meeting with Vice President Vance and et cetera, et cetera. And he'd been sick for quite a while. He had a pneumonia. He was really, really in rough shape. 88 years old, R.I.P. to the Pope. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Scheduled to join us is Father Frank Pavone. You know him of Priests for Life fame. He'll be joining us a little bit later, as well as Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne will be joining us, as well as, who else do I have on my list today? Let me see. Chris Ruddy, CEO of Newsmax TV. He's coming up in a little bit as well. There's plenty of things to talk about. But right now, I want to go into this because right after you hear about the Pope dying, the next big story I see, Klaus Schwab announcing he's stepping down from the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees. Now, I don't know if this is one of those things that I'm good at or not, but I will make an attempt to do my best Klaus Schwab impression. Say, I am Klaus Schwab. I am stepping down, retiring. It sounds more like Arnold, right? I got to work on that. I got to work on my Klaus Schwab. But he does have such a funny German accent. And he says he's stepping down. Now, it doesn't surprise me at all when you become, I'm going to say, the main target, right? You got Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, and George Soros. These guys are like the three main bad guys funding the left. And I'm sure there's a lot of others, but they're the faces. So it makes a lot of sense to me that they would, say, you know what, it's time to retire. Plus, I think at some point, people retire. The Pope died at 88 years old. Here you got Klaus Schwab retiring as he enters his 88th year, saying, quote, following my recent announcement, as I enter my 88th year, I have decided to step down from the position of chair and member of the Board of Trustees with immediate effect. I really got to work on it. I'll get it, though, I promise you. And that's what Schwab told the board of the World Economic Forum. So now they still have other board of trustee members. And who are they? Well, let me see. I'll tell you who some of them are. Vice President Al Gore. Let me see who else. Larry Fink, the chair and chief executive officer of BlackRock. He's also on the board of the World Economic Forum, just to name a couple. So I don't think those guys are going anywhere anytime soon. So we shall see how this continues to unfold. Anyway, we'll get a little bit more into that as we go through the evening. What else did I have? Oh, man, there's so much here. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Look at this. Gold Bar Bob, his wife, the wife of Gold Bar Bob, Nadine Menendez, has now been convicted in the bribery scheme as well. A lot of people thought initially that there was some speculation that maybe she was the state's witness or something like that. I didn't have an opinion on that because I didn't know. But interesting to see. Nadine Menendez was convicted today of cooking up a crooked scheme with her husband, ex-New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, to sell out his political post for gold bars, a Mercedes-Benz, and other bribes. Jurors found the 58-year-old Inglewood Cliffs resident. Inglewood Cliffs, by the way, it's about 15 or 13 minutes away from where I live. Not far at all. Inglewood Cliffs resident guilty of all 15 federal corruption charges against her following about 8 hours of deliberation over 2 days, wearing all black except for a pink mask, which I think is interesting, right? She's wearing like a COVID mask. It's not even COVID time. I don't think anybody's ever wearing masks again, honestly, except her, and probably because she didn't want people to see her. But you couldn't see any emotion on her face because she was wrapped up. And anyway, this happened in the federal court in Manhattan. That's basically the scoop there. Let me see what else. Menendez is doing 11 years. I'll keep you posted on what's going on here. But doesn't look good. It's rare, right? It's rare that you see people go to jail. And when you hear Eric Adams, right? Eric Adams is out there, and he's making the rounds saying that the Biden Justice Department weaponized itself against him. And I'm not saying I don't believe him. I do believe him. I believe Trump. I believe Todd Blanche. I believe all of them when they said that. I've seen them do it to Trump. So why not do it to Menendez? And by the way, Menendez, and this is not a defense of Menendez, but it is saying that Menendez was true to his values in being against Iran. He never wanted a nuclear Iran. When Obama wanted a nuclear Iran, Menendez said no. I think back then he was chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. So, interestingly, I'm not saying Menendez is a saint, and I'm not saying he's not guilty, but I am saying that the reason they went after him, in my opinion, was likely because of his opposition to Obama. And then that does beg the question, did he do what they say he did? Did he do it or not? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that it's not uncommon when people don't go with the flow for them to come after you politically. And this is not exclusive to Biden. This has been going on forever and a day. I used to live in Hudson County, New Jersey, and at one point, many years ago, Bob Menendez was the chairman of the Democrat Party in Hudson County, New Jersey. And it was very politicized. 20 years ago, in 2005, I ran for the state assembly against a guy named Brian Stack, who people think is like the second coming. And at the time, nice enough guy, but I didn't like the way he was running things. I'd bought a condo in Union City. He was also the mayor of Union City. And I thought I was paying way too much in tax, not getting nearly enough services. They broke into my car right outside of my house. And I thought, this is no good. I thought about writing my congressman. Oh, wait, my congressman was Bob Menendez at that time. And I said, you know what, this is going nowhere fast. So I decided to be a thorn in his side and ran for office to expose a lot of issues. And at the time, there was a huge human trafficking operation going on all throughout Hudson County. And in one of them, believe it or not, this is a little bit of an aside, but just to show you how entrenched this has been with politics for so long. 20 years ago, a woman named Luisa Medrano, Medrano, she was arrested by the United States Attorney's Office, the FBI, for trafficking underage girls in several bars where these girls would work as, I can't even say as bartenders. They basically sat at the bar and would dance with male patrons, and in some cases would go up to an apartment upstairs with those same male patrons and engage in prostitution. Now, I guess some people were tolerable or would tolerate this, but it continued. And what was interesting about it was that some of these girls were found to be as young as 14 years old. And this was a big scandal. So then you have these girls that are doing whatnot. And this woman had another bar in Union City. And for protection, she would hire the police to do off-duty work. And many a time, while this stuff was happening, the door was guarded by the Union City Police. So I didn't neglect to mention that in a press conference that I did when I ran against then Mayor, then Assemblyman Brian Stack. And he was very upset. He sent out a mailer saying his opponents are trying to attack him, blah, 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 blah. But it turned out Mayor Stack had taken $3,000 in donations from this Luisa Medrano, the human trafficker. Now, I wasn't making it up. I hadn't taken any money from her. He took the money from her. So to vindicate himself, he donated the $3,000 to a domestic violence charity, and that somehow absolved him from being the mayor that provided the police protection for the human trafficking operation that happened on Bergen Line Avenue. Now, I was amazed that I didn't win, but it goes to show you that Democrats have a serious operation going, and it's been very serious for a very long time. They are very entrenched. I remember campaigning, and at one point, people would give me the evil eye, right? Mal de ojo, as they say in Italian, malucchia. And they would ask me, why are you running against Brian? Because they loved him so much because he would give out free turkeys. So, I mean, it's a real retail sport in Jersey. I'm sure in many places, but politics is taken very seriously in Jersey, in particular in Hudson County. So Gold Bar Bob's wife has been convicted. That was a long way of telling you that story. Now, I want to get into a bunch of other stuff because the Associated Press has been kicked out of the White House. Then they get admitted back, kind of, and then the new policy goes to court, and they say, no, you know what? Trump is right. The Trump policy is okay. You guys got to follow the rules like everybody else. So we're going to get some reaction to that and everything else that's going on in America at night. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory?
That's Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, and I'm playing that today because I read just this morning that they were reinstated, but it wasn't a win for them. They were reinstated as the Washington Post or any other outlet. They no longer have this same pool privilege. So it's really a victory for the Trump administration. And some, I think, laud this as a victory for press freedom. Others are saying this is exactly what totalitarianism looks like. I tend to think that, you got to play ball. But that doesn't mean you compromise your values, right? The media is the watchdog of the people, not because I say so, but because the Constitution kind of designed it that way. So I want to get a real patriot to weigh in on this, somebody who knows exactly what's going on. He is the CEO of Newsmax TV, and he's with us now. Chris Ruddy, welcome back, sir.
Rich, always glad to be on with you.
Thank you, sir. It's always an honor. So what do you think of what's going on with the Associated Press and the White House and their related beef?
Well, look, this has gone on for a while. The media lost a lot of confidence in the president. Ultimately, the president can decide the press system. It had been the tradition of the White House to allow the press to sort of decide coverage issues and matters. And that broke down. I think, the negative press against the president has been pretty serious. We know in the last election, Rich, the Media Research Center did a study, and they found that 90% of the press reports about Donald Trump were negative.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. 93, 97, something crazy.
Yeah. 80% of the press reports about Kamala Harris were positive. And he won with a strong number. I mean, he won every string state. These people are not connected to the reality, and they're not giving balanced coverage. The public doesn't like it. And so Trump doesn't trust them, and he's at war with them. I would hope that he could get along with the press. I'm a member of the press. We sit in the White House press area. We have several correspondents and people there every day. But, we would like a resolution with these battles. But on the other hand, I understand why the president's so angry.
Yeah, no, listen, I get it. And I also remember, I've spoken to James Rosen in the past about, how they didn't barely call on him when he was there during the Biden years. So I know that they tend to play games, and some of that stuff is political. I don't think Trump is being political. I think he's trying to be fair because they were being political with him. But Chris Ruddy, very concise answer, and I appreciate it. I want to get your take, being that time is limited, on what do you think is going on, or I guess the trajectory for the future of the trade wars?
Well, look, I've spoken to President Trump several times on this, and, he's not really for trade wars. He's for fair trade. He's not really for tariffs. I mean, he believes in a couple of the tariffs. He wants a car tariff to protect the car industry because he thinks it's important for national security. But he wants China to lower their tariffs. He wants these countries to lower their tariffs against American products and goods. So if you go to China or Europe, you won't find American cars on the streets, on the roads. You come here, you find all sorts of foreign cars and all sorts of goods. They can come easily into our markets. That's not right. So I think the tariff thing is painful. Trump is undoing 30, 40 years of bad trade policy. I think people want to give him a benefit of a doubt and give him a chance. And the market and other things, they're sort of using that as a club against him. I think it's wrong.
Folks, we're on with Chris Ruddy, CEO of Newsmax, and you know that they recently had their IPO. What were they valued at? Something like $300 million by IPO time. How's everything going?
Well, actually, we've had a valuation of $3 billion plus for a while here. I don't know.
Wow.
Every day it changes a little bit, but Newsmax went out. We went out with $1 billion valuation on March 31st. We went on the New York Stock Exchange. We've been trading under the symbol NMAX, NMAX. We've had a tremendous rise. So the stock's been up over 100%, sometimes 200, 300%. And people are really, they're like voting with their investments. They want to join with Newsmax and see us grow. So that's a very positive development, we think. Check us out at newsmaxinvest.com, newsmaxinvest.com.
Chris Ruddy, thank you, sir. I urge everybody to go check out newsmaxinvest.com. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, sir. Godspeed.
Rich, I look forward. We'll be back on more often.
Yes, sir.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company during the late shift here, straight till, I don't know, next 2.5 hours or so. So keep it locked right here, but I want to get your thoughts and calls and reactions on everything that's going on. We have a lot to discuss. You've got the Iranians getting into bed with the Russians, signing a 20-year alliance, what they call a strategic partnership. That sounds fishy. We're going to talk to a pro on that, and maybe not tonight, but maybe tomorrow, definitely. And you've also got the chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, stepping down. That I'm sure is going to upset a lot of the folks in Europe. But let's see what you guys have to say about this. Let's go to Steve, Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Steve, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it. We're talking about the World Economic Forum, you are, and I thought I would just like to remind everybody about how lucky they are to be an American citizen. So I did a little work today, and I did kilowatt hour. I just compared us to France, okay? It's like, France, that's the great place to live. Everyone thinks so, who's a liberal here in the United States and doesn't realize. And then I started digging in, just going on the internet and finding out different things like average income, average square foot of the home, and stuff like that. And so France, if you don't mind, I'll just go through.
Just make it quick.
France average income 45,000. United States average income 80,000. Square foot home average in France is 1,058 square feet. Here in the U.S., it's 2,209. Income tax average in France is 45%. Income tax average in the United States is 24%. Half. Like everything's half. Sales tax is 20%. Here, 7%. So that's 3 times as much anytime you buy something. Cost of, here we go. Oh, this is the real indicator. Okay, kilowatt per hour. My house is a 5-bedroom house. It's all electric though. I spend $350 every month, right? I mean, like not every month. It goes up and down. It sometimes
that's the high
500.
month. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow.
No, that's a low month. I've got 12 people in my house. So, but their kilowatt per hour is double what ours is. So, imagine me. Average $350. I'm going to spend $700 average every month if I had an all-electric house this size. And in living in France, I would have half of the income. Not to mention all the other stuff I'm paying. Okay, here's the real thing.
There's also an interesting figure of unemployment. Right, unemployment used to be almost 50% in France a long time ago. It's probably just under 8 now, a little over 7, but that's probably still twice as much as whatever we have on our books. And I get the point. Listen, I haven't been to France, but I have, followed those numbers. And I remember when it was Jacques Chirac, before it was Emmanuel Macron. And while things may have improved a little bit for the French, it's just not an ideal situation, right? Because their policies lean too far to the socialist column. And that never works. And that's the bottom line there. Steve in Georgia, WGKA, Atlanta, the A. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And let me see. Where do we go? We continue. Let's go to Paul. Paul's in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, go right ahead, sir.
Thanks, Rich. I just wanted to say to the faithful out there, the Catholic faithful, there'll be another pontiff soon. Never fear, there'll be one there. And that's all I have to say on that. But the thing that's mostly on my mind, it's been on my mind for about 3 weeks, is the Iranian question that Trump's got on his plate. It's just, it's pretty awesome, that type of decision that he's got to make. Hamas,
and just to add, it kind of got a little complicated today. Right, a little more complicated, because while he's trying to negotiate keeping Putin at bay and getting Zelensky to play ball on a minerals deal, we also today see that Putin signed a deal with Iran, a 20-year strategic partnership that many are calling an alliance. And if they are now, signed, sealed, and delivered as allies. What does that mean if the United States has to get involved with either or, right? Now, it sounds like a political move, so they can say exactly that. Hey, don't mess with him, don't mess with me. You don't want to have a multi-front worldwide skirmish on your hands, right? It seems to me how they're sending their message. But I don't know if that's a message that's going to be received entirely well by the Americans, in particular Trump.
The Hamas has been playing games. They're keeping the Israelis busy so that they can continue their bomb making. And the worst problem I see for us is what kind of delivery system do they have? They've got to have one by now. They must have one. And it was probably given to them by the Russians, I would assume, or even the Chinese, because they've been loading up at the dock for oil and taking off with the oil. And that was to the tune of $100 billion, which we all know, except for the fake news quashed it. And, it's bothersome, especially to hear what you just said about Russia and them. They've always been an evil alliance. They were the evil empire at one time, so nothing's really changed. It's just some of the faces and some of the leaders have changed.
Yeah, well, Paul, some would argue that the axis of evil and the evil empire was really just American rhetoric, and the deep state CIA folks creating a bad guy out of Putin, but he's really the West's shining white hope. What do you think?
I tend to disagree with that. Putin was not a good actor. He was a murderer. He used to shoot people off the Berlin Wall when it was still East German into Western territory, and he enjoyed it. That's something that I heard from somebody that had the knowledge of him doing that. And so if you can do that, you can do anything. And you can see the carnage that he's left in the Ukraine as far as shallow graves, people with their hands tied behind their back, one foot in the base of their head. And it's just this guy, he's a bad actor all the way around.
I hear that, brother. Well, thanks for your call. I appreciate it. I think I tend to agree with you on that one. Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI in the building. And, folks, we continue with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'll start out by saying, and I'm sure this is obvious, we are devastated by the verdict. Speaking for myself, I am devastated by the verdict, but I want to emphasize that we respect the criminal justice system, we respect this court, we respect our judge, and we respect the jury for its hard work. Nonetheless, this is a very rough day for us. I have no doubt in my mind that the jury did what they thought was right. And I don't think there's any point to my standing here and debating any of that, and so I declined to do that. But the case is not over. There will be other days, and we'll look forward to that.
That is the attorney for Mrs. Menendez, the wife of Bob Menendez, who's there just dodging every last question that they asked him, saying, I'm here to answer questions, but I'm not going to answer any questions. Thank you very much for asking your questions. Pretty funny stuff there. And I mean, not funny what happened to her, but you know what they say, you mess with the bull, you get the horns, right? You play, you pay. You do the crime, you got to do the time. Anyway, all sorts of cliches coming to mind there. Let's go to Denise, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, listening on WOND out of Atlantic City. Denise, welcome.
It's actually Richfield, but that's okay.
Oh, wonderful.
I bounce between Fort Lee, Richfield, and Atlantic City. You were talking about West New York and Hudson County,
Yes.
and for some reason, I mean, Hudson County, Fort Lee, and Atlantic City have a very they have like a duality, because there's corruption, there was mobsters, and I can remember back when I was growing up. I'm 75, so when in the 60s I was growing up, there was a lot of corruption with all the politicians in Hudson County, and even in Fort Lee. Fort Lee mayor was ostracized, and a hit was put out on him. He had to go into hiding for 20 years. I mean, it's always been an area, and the same thing with Atlantic City. I mean, I have a business there, and I've been there since 1978. Same thing with Atlantic City, hotbed of mobster stuff and all kinds of stuff. It happens everywhere.
It's funny you say that. I totally agree with you. I think that it's part of the Jersey culture. And ironically, and this is not a defense of Republicans, but ironically, none of them are Republicans. Typically, when you see these things, these are Democrats. It's usually part of a Democrat machine, kind of like the Daily Machine in Chicago, or the very infamous mayor of Jersey City, who had the trap door built into his desk just to accept bribes. That was Mayor Frank Hague. And in that Frank Hague mold, I think there were a lot of people that were like disciples of his that scattered about the whole state, moving further south to go extort people in your neck of the woods. And the whole thing to me is just fascinating, because I'd never really observed politics like that anywhere else but Hudson County. And I remember back in that time, 2005, maybe 06, somebody was telling me about a course that they or their child was taking at the University of California, Los Angeles, and it was called Hudson County Politics. And they were explaining how they did double dipping and triple dipping, and how the same guy that was your state senator was also a mayor, was also, on the zoning commission, and they had, so many jobs where they could, in effect, make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, and they had a lot of power amassed by double dipping and triple dipping. And when that became widely known to the public, you know what they did, Denise? They decided to grandfather it so that those who do it can continue to do it, but nobody else could do it. It was then illegal. And I just thought that was just so Jersey of them to do. And you're right. This has been going on for as long as I've been watching, and apparently as long as you've been watching too.
Yeah, it's been I'm born and raised in Fort Lee. My son lives in Richfield, so I'm back and forth to his house. But Richfield seems to be sort of like immune to any BS. My son's a volunteer fireman there, and there's not any, I haven't seen any corruption and stuff like that. But I'm sure that, I'm sure there's something that may have occurred, because I wasn't tuned into it back in those days. But I mean, Fort Lee, major mob stuff when I was growing up. So
yeah, I can only imagine. That was like the Wild West, with those big buildings facing the city, and lots of construction, bridge construction, all sorts of stuff. Whenever there's construction, there's usually somebody saying, hey, he's a friend of mine, he's a friend of ours, come on, but let me wet my beak, right? That tends to happen quite a bit, Denise.
That was the whole issue around the mayor in Fort Lee. He was asked to change the zoning or something on a particular property, and he said he couldn't do it because the zoning board had to do it, and it got messy, and they put a hit out on him, and he fled the scene for like 25 years, and then about 10 or 15 years ago, he showed up at a Memorial Day parade. He was like, in a convertible riding in the parade, and everybody.
Yeah, he was no longer hiding.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But my cousin was the undersheriff in Hudson County in the late '60s, and he would tell us stories that were just astronomical, and he would he basically he retired because he retired early because he didn't want to be a part of any kind of scandals, and a really upstanding guy. But Bergline Avenue, when I was a kid, that was a place to shop. There was no.
Oh my gosh! When I was a young man, Denise, I had a business on Bergen Line Avenue, 6204 Bergen Line Avenue. It was adjacent to a Taco Bell across the street from Bank of America, corner property. And I sold cell phones out of there. And I did good for a little while before I lost my shirt. Cell phones and retail wasn't for me. Denise, I got to hit a break here, but thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you. Hope to talk to you soon. And maybe we'll be neighbors. I'm looking at one of those high-rise buildings in Fort Lee, so maybe I'll talk to you soon to get your advice on it. Folks, we're coming right back. It's Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
If Senator Van Hollen can get down there, if the president can get up here and get to the White House, then I don't understand why we can't get Abrego up out of there. I mean, we know that they admitted that they were wrong. Now they're trying to double back and say, well, he's this terrible person and all this kind of stuff. But here's the reality. As far as I'm concerned, he's a lot less criminal than the person that's sitting in the White House. Because last time I checked, he doesn't have any criminal convictions. I don't even think he has any outstanding cases versus the guy that still had cases pending when he was sworn in on January 20th and also has 34 felony convictions. So listen, I don't want to hear anything from the Republican Party about how they're trying to keep us safe when their fearless leader is actually the biggest criminal thus far that we have seen, because I haven't seen anybody with a rap sheet that looks like the president's.
Well, let me introduce you to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, because this guy's noted in court documentation. There's police reports on him, and nothing there says falsifying business records or any of that stuff. No. The stuff that he's being accused of is trafficking, beating a woman, her own admission. So, Jasmine Crockett, are you turning your back on your fellow woman? Can you even identify what a woman is? Can you define a woman? This is the problem here, right? First of all, what'd they get Capone on? Tax evasion? And he was clearly a crook. This guy, same thing. I mean, he's probably a good enough criminal to be able to get cover from the Americans saying, no, don't send me back because the rival gangs will kill me. And now we're trying to get this guy out. I mean, it's almost as if, we were about to do a prisoner swap, right? Like we did with the butcher of the last guy that they did the prisoner swap with. They always go for the worst person possible. This is this guy. Now, this Maryland man, Maryland father, Maryland man, Maryland father, we keep hearing this cavalcade of voices telling us that he's fantastic. The reality is, when you look into it, he's not fantastic. And this is coming from his own family, right? The woman's the one who wrote out these two police reports requesting that the court give her an order of protection. I didn't make that up. She wrote it, not me. I'm just going off what she said. So how do you, Jasmine Crockett, really? I mean, there's politics, but then you have to be accountable for the things you say. You have to be able to defend these things. Trump's guilty of what? In your world, a white-collar crime? He owes some lady money because he said that he would never hook up with her? And they said that was some sort of harassment? Come on. You've got to be kidding me. Everything that Trump was involved in, I think everybody knows by now, was fake, it was phony, and it was fraud. It was an attack on him to stop him from getting to the White House, and he got there anyway, and you can't handle it. Oh, Jasmine Crockett. Folks, give me a call. Let me know. I need a good nickname for Jasmine Crockett, and I'm drawing a blank. So help me out there. Anyway, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm coming right back, but if not, we'll see you después. Live
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Monday night. It's 7 minutes past the hour. We're live, we're national, and here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And in a little bit, we're going to chat with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, who's usually in Washington, but was in New York and paid me a visit in the studio. So we're going to chat with her momentarily. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the world. Of course, Klaus Schwab, Klaus Schwab is the head bad guy in charge over at the World Economic Forum. He is the famous person that wrote the book about the COVID reset. And then he... what else did he do? He does all these stupid things. I honestly don't like talking about him. In the past, people used to criticize me and say, you don't talk enough about Klaus Schwab. And it's because I didn't want to give him any attention, especially when he had a book out and he was looking for that attention. But today I'm going to give him the attention. Why? Because today Klaus Schwab said that he is retiring. Listen to this.
Klaus Schwab resigned from his role as chairman and board member of the World Economic Forum. Schwab didn't just leave a legacy, he left a closet full of robes that scream, Sith Lord with a Swiss bank account. The WEF is known for its annual meetings in Davos, Switzerland, where global elites fly in their private jets to discuss your carbon footprint. It's basically Burning Man for billionaires, but with less nudity. The WEF is now accepting applications for a new chairman. Required qualifications are an economics degree, leadership experience, and the ability to dress like you're auditioning for a dystopian sci-fi movie.
That was very funny. That's a report from Fox Business, which I thought was fantastic. And Klaus Schwab, he's out the door, right? He's out the door, and I think that's a good thing. Now, does it mean that the world is changing? Does it mean we have this dramatic reset? Does it mean that his henchman, sidekick, Yuval Harari, will not take over, right? As Klaus Schwab is saying things like, you'll own nothing and be happy. Yuval Harari was saying things like, in the future, we won't even need God. We won't need a God in the future. I mean, he's nuts. He's an absolute whack job. And I guess he's next in line. So I wouldn't get too happy just yet. Just like the people that think that, the current Pope was probably one of the more liberal popes, and that now that he is not alive anymore, that he would, somehow the church is going to be a little bit more conservative. Maybe. I mean, maybe there's going to be a return to the roots of the catechism. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know who's next in line. I know that I don't think that there's much of a ideological fight amongst the runners-up. I haven't heard anything like that. So from my opinion, all the people running to be Pope, whether they're running or not, but in the running, maybe some are more conservative than others, but I don't think you have a real conservative there. I don't think you have a real theologically conservative person there, because it's just unlikely, right? I mean, this is the state of affairs today in the church. So that's my thought. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next hour guest will correct me on that. Father Frank Pavone is scheduled to be with us in the next hour. But right now, I want to keep going because there's a couple other things that I wanted to get to today. Obviously, the Pope has died. Obviously, Klaus Schwab has, quit his job. But there's more. There's other big stories out there that I'm about to get to. Another one that I wanted to get to was I wanted to talk a little bit about the candidates. And some of them might be more conservative than others, and hopefully we'll find out more about that. But the the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, this guy can't catch a break, right? No matter what he's doing, when he's doing it, they're always trying to get him. And you know what that means? That means that he's being effective. Because when you're effective, they come after you. That's what it's always about. And he was at the Easter egg roll at the White House today. And, of course, they want to ask questions about the Signal chat controversy, right? Because why wouldn't they? This is never going to end, despite people, some heads already having rolled. Listen to this, number 12.
What do you want to say, sir, about the Signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a bunch of, a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with.
He's happy to be here at the Easter egg roll. He was with his dad and his kids, and good for him. Pete Hegseth is a good guy, Secretary of Defense, and I'm glad that he's standing up to the media, who's obviously trying to tear him down. This is a somewhat, I think, irrelevant story already, right? It's kind of outside of the news cycle. It's not new in any way, and there's no development on it. But this reporter kept going, asking if he'd spoken to the president. Hegseth obviously responds saying, I've spoken to the president, and we're going to continue fighting on the same page all the way. And then President Trump jumped in and reiterated the same, cut number 13.
I mean, I hear they're doing that whole thing again. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thank you. Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis how much dysfunction they have. There's none. Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy with him. We have the highest recruitment numbers I think we've had in 28 years. No, he's doing a great job. It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. He was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do that.
So while Pete Hegseth is getting rid of a lot of bad people, which is what the president just said, and I think his source of references was great. Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis. That's great. I think another group of people that are being removed are the people self-deporting. Now, that may not be enough to solve the entire crisis or problem, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And there's a lot of people that are deporting themselves so that they can have a shot at coming back to the United States down the road. That, I think, is a very good idea. If people are interested in being in this country for whatever reason, to work here, to raise their kids here, to become Americans, God bless them, all right? If we're allowed to do it, we should do it, because we need people who love America. What we don't need is people who don't love America, people who are sneaking in and trying to destroy it from the inside. That we don't need. We don't need MS-13. We don't need Mr. Abrego Garcia. We don't need people that are, honestly, there's a bunch of Americans we could probably do without, but we're not going to get rid of them just yet. Anyway, straight ahead, folks, we've got Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, BVD from the great state of Texas, joins us. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been, a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. They are trying to litigate on social media what they should be doing in the courts. They need to put up or shut up in the courts. Let me tell you, and I decided to write this down so I could be absolutely accurate as to what Federal District Court Judge Zinnes said about these allegations by the Trump administration. Quote, no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity has been presented to the court. That's where to litigate this. It's been litigated in many other places. So I'm not going to get into the details because the whole purpose of our court system is for them to adjudicate these things, not for Donald Trump to go off on social media.
All right, America, welcome back. As promised, we've got Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, BVD from the great state of Texas. How was your Easter? How's everything going? Welcome to New York City.
Thank you. I'm happy to be out of D.C., quite honestly. We've been working. It always kind of cracks me up, though, when people are like, oh, you're on recess, you're on vacation. It's like if anybody sees our schedule when we're back in the district, they will know we are not on recess. You're meeting with people, you're meeting with your constituents, you're meeting with business entities, and, you're having roundtables, and it's constant.
Yeah, I bet there's no vacation during the recess for sure.
No. Recess is not what it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, right. This is why you're in New York City and you're running around probably on your third interview of the day. But that's life as a congresswoman. And now there's a lot of things I want to talk about. Something we kind of broached on and didn't get into, and I'm glad we didn't really get into it so we can get into it here, is how the Democrats, in particular the left, on the left, within the media, the left within Congress, the most extreme elements, they've really glommed on to this idea that their new savior is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who every day there's a new piece of evidence implicating him with MS-13. I saw him just recently, President Bukele, tweeting a funny picture of him sitting with Senator Van Hollen, who's in El Salvador. I thought
enjoying margaritas.
Yeah, having margaritas. This is so laughable, but it's not, that the Democrats want to die on this hill. What do you think?
I think they're insane. I mean, they're doubling down now, and I think history is going to prove them wrong. You have got a member of MS-13. You have got an alleged wife beater. And the newest information I saw was he was stopped for basically being a human trafficker as well. He was stopped in Tennessee with 8 folks in the car. He was very suspicious, had by the way, an expired license, and this guy hasn't gotten picked up yet. And now we're finally shocked that he's being deported as an illegal alien and illegal criminal alien on top of that. And I think Democrats, when this was first introduced in the mainstream media, was fine to go along with it. You have deported an American citizen. He is a fine, upstanding member of your community, and he's a father of 3. And then all of this stuff starts coming out, and they are still doubling down. Where are they for the families of women who have been assaulted, raped, murdered? Where are they, quite honestly, in looking at the American citizens who are being held against their will in Gaza by Hamas? It just seems an odd hill to die on, an odd poster child for criminal illegal aliens that they're trying to somehow put out there. He's an MS-3 gangbanger. He is a alleged wife beater and a human trafficker, and they're going to town trying to raise this guy up as if he's just, something that he's not. And if this is where they want to take it, God help them.
I say keep going. I think it's great for them because they did this with George Floyd. I think this eventually cost them this issue of immigration, I think, cost them the election in many ways. So if this is where they want to be, fantastic, right? Trump's got the midterms signed, sealed, and delivered. But it strikes me as odd when, I'm not a politician. I talk about politicians, right? But this is your business. You have to get reelected. You're in this game. You have to raise money. How does a guy like your colleague from the Senate, Senator Van Hollen, how does he make sense of this?
Please don't ask me. Don't ask me to defend and to try to make sense of it. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if you look at what happened in November, he should recognize the fact that it doesn't make sense to most Americans. Most Americans want to live in a community in which their kids can go to school and they don't have to worry about, their safety there and back. They can sleep at home and not have to worry about, somebody busting into their house, where they can go for a jog and not have to worry about their wife or their daughter being raped and murdered. I think people recognize that. They came out in droves and voted to support a president who promised that he was going to fight against that, and you've seen it. I mean, God love Tom Homan and the work that he is doing, and Kristi Noem for having the backbones that they have and sticking to their guns. And as a result, you've seen 95% less illegal crossings into our country March of this year as opposed to under the Biden administration March of last year. They are having success in record numbers, and guess what? We didn't have to pass another bill to do it. The laws were already on the table. The methods were already there. The Biden administration chose not to do it, chose to open our borders, and as a result, you're seeing the kind of crime in our communities that you're seeing now.
Amigos, we're on with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from the great state of Texas. And, Congresswoman, I look at so much of what's happening, and I think to myself, it's almost as if they're trying to create a scenario to continue the MAGA movement, to almost keep it going, because they double down. You had on Thursday, the mother of Rachel Morin, Patty Morin, gives this graphic
it was heartbreaking.
Play-by-play that I thought, this woman has the courage of 10 saints. I don't know that I could do that, and I pray I never have to. But I look at that, and I think that is going to sway people. Yeah. Van Hollen sitting down, drinking margaritas in El Salvador in this big prison place, it's not moving the needle for anything, in my opinion. Maybe I'm living in my bubble, maybe not. But what do you think?
I think when you looked at the mom, and all of our hearts could go out.
Yeah.
When she said that, she's like, any of you who are a mom, can you imagine somebody reaching into your chest and pulling out your heart? And that's what I wake up feeling every day. It's very hard to imagine not reaching people when you're talking to them like that. Versus, Senator Van Hollen, who is in a it was obvious it was this hotel, a meeting room where he is literally by himself. I mean, symbolically, I thought that spoke volumes. And he is defending somebody, saying that he didn't have due process. Well, the fact is that this guy did have due process. He went in front of a court. He was ordered out of the country, deported. He went and he appealed it. His appeal was denied. The whole point of where they're saying is you can't send him back to El Salvador because he's got a rival gang that will kill him. Well, that rival gang is no longer in business. So there's not an excuse not to send him back to his home country. And you've got the president of that home country saying, yeah, we want him here. We want him in jail. So I think, again, if you're trying to find that straw in a hayfield of somebody that you can put on a poster and say, don't you feel bad for this, they've picked the wrong one.
I agree with that 100%. This is a losing fight, and I'm amazed that we're having it. I'm amazed that that's happening. I'm amazed that there's a president from another country sitting in the Oval with the President of the United States, jointly arguing with CNN about why, what you just mentioned, 95% border security, and that's not making the headlines the way it needs to be. That to me blows me away. Now, I want to get into some of the breaking news over Easter weekend, but I want to talk about some more pressing matters that are still relevant in Washington. So we're going to do that straight ahead. Amigos, we're coming right back with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, BVD, from the great state of Texas.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Bukele, who's declared himself a dictator, and the other tyrants, dictators, autocrats of the world have to understand that the Trump administration is not going to last forever. We're going to restore strong democracy to America, and we will remember who stood up for democracy in America and who tried to drive us down towards dictatorship and autocracy. So I'm glad that Chris Van Hollen showed exactly where America is, and we're not afraid of any dictator anywhere.
All right, welcome back, America. Rich Valdez. We're sitting down one-on-one. We're live in studio with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, BVD from the great state of Texas. And Congresswoman, I want to, again, welcome you to New York. Glad that you're on the program again. Great to meet you in person. You are more lovely in person, by the way, than you are in our other interactions. So welcome. The stuff I want to get into now is we saw President Trump's approval ratings go up a week ago Monday, when after he doubled down on tariffs and broke Wall Street for 5 minutes, and people were freaking out about this, and some people were getting rich over it because he said, hey, now's a good time to buy, when he posted on Truth Social. And I think it's much ado about nothing, but the results speak for themselves. People are interested. There's some fake polling that comes out afterwards saying, he's really not that good, this, that, and the other. Now, ultimately, I think the tariff strategy seems to be working, right? Because it's really not a tariff strategy if you look at it. I think it's a do this or I will strategy, right? And ultimately it's called let's have no tariff strategy, right? Let's build an America strategy. And I think people are getting hung up on trade deficits. They're getting hung up on tariffs per se. What do you think of my assessment, and am I missing something?
I think the president is using tariffs to get to three goals, and I don't think they're competing goals. I think they're complementary goals. I think one, he's using tariffs as a way to get the attention of countries that we need their help, whether or not that's China and their fentanyl that they're sending over, or Mexico and their drug cartels and sex trafficking and, again, fentanyl flow, and saying, hey, we are going to double down on you if you do not help us protect our borders, protect our country. I think the second thing he's doing is countries that we have had a very, we feel like we have been abused as far as tariffs go. He's saying they're going to be reciprocal trade. So if you're going to sit here and you're going to punish us, we're going to do it equal. It's up to you. Do you want to work with our country? Do you want to have access to our markets? Then you're going to have to work with us, because if it was good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I think the third thing is that they're actually using tariffs to get back to pre-1913 in our country's history, to use them as a revenue raiser. But the fact is that when you see the reaction that's coming out of Wall Street and you see the reaction that's coming from these businesses, they want consistency. They can play by the rules if they know what the rules are, and they're going to push on the brakes of investment while you still have some of this uncertainty. Sure. But I think it's very smart of Trump to be able to do this, the president to be able to do this early on in his presidency, to basically blow up a system that has not been working for us, that we have seen China literally rip out, our manufacturing base in this country. And we saw it when you had supply chain issues during COVID. You saw it so starkly, to try to get that back. And I think, again, the markets are going to understand. Right now, it's a little chaotic, but I think it's organized chaos. This is a president who had 8 years to put this strategy in place, 8 years to get together a team to be able to execute on it, and it's working. You think about all the countries that are coming to the table now saying, we want to work with you. We're willing to reduce the tariffs that we are charging because we want to have access to the U.S. market. He's all for free trade, but he wants it to be fair, and he wants it to be balanced, and he wants it to be in the best interest of our country. That's what we should be wanting. And I think at the same time that you have the tariff discussion, and why some of the hesitancy in that is because right now we're working on a tax bill. And I think the business community, our job creators across the country, are very hungry to find out what that's going to look like. We are facing, at the end of this year, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, a lot of expiring provisions like R&D, like expense depreciation, like our 199A pass-through for our small businesses. They want to know, are those going to continue? That had great results in 2017. The only thing that I think stifled some of the results was COVID. Yeah. But when you look at the impact that had on economic growth, on American private businesses investing in the future of their company, investing in their employees, bringing back manufacturing back onshore, it was tremendous. And I think as we're working together, I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, as we're working to put that tax bill together, that I think will help aid some of these businesses, and again, massive reinvestments. But think about the results that this president has had. Is it at least $1.5 trillion has already been announced in private investments in this country? So his economic policy is sound. And I know, again, it may seem disorganized, but I literally think it's organized chaos.
What do you think to the naysayers? And again, I'm optimistic only because I grew up in New York, and I grew up watching Trump. And he's a very known figure to me, right? I think a lot of people across the country see him as, oh, who's this crazy guy from New York and whatever, but it's par for the course. And when he brings up ideas like bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., using AI and robotics to counter the human labor that they exploit in China, I think that is something that can level the playing field. Your thoughts?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think that, this is what we have been fighting for years. But you actually have a president with a backbone to be able to stand up and do it and to come up with a strategy. And it is an uncomfortable strategy. Again, people don't like change. Mm-hmm. But we have seen for decades China take advantage of us. We've seen manufacturing jobs that have moved out of our country into places that may or may not be our advocates, may or may not be our allies. And when we think about the threat on national security, whether or not it's PPP equipment during a pandemic and not having access to it, to not having access to chips, to pharmaceuticals. Those things we have got to make sure that for national security purposes are being manufactured here. And for so many businesses have come to us and said, look, we want to be based in America. We are happy to be based here. We have a great market, but we are being strapped with regulations. You strap our hands behind our back with regulations, and then you import from countries that don't have any of those regulations, and you make us completely uncompetitive. And we need to make sure that our job creators that are increasing our economy, that are hiring our workers, that are making our people, successful, that continues. We want to see manufacturing. We want to see a renaissance of that. And we want to see economic growth. That's something that since I was a mayor, since I was on city council at the local level, have been focused on. Because when you can make your people successful in your communities, that's the way to thrive. Making sure that you don't have government intrusion in aspects of your life, pulling that back, restraining it, making sure that people can take home more of what they make, and making sure that you're cutting the unnecessary regulations. That's what we're concentrated on. I think that's what you're going to see come out of this, one big, beautiful bill that Republicans are, gung-ho and have been working on for over 2 years. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about having, a president in the White House who focuses on that and having the opportunity in the House and in the Senate to pass these and codify what this president during his first administration started.
How confident are you in the big, beautiful bill happening? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security.
We want to have a smart bill. I think, our focus on making sure that the provisions under the TCJA are extended, making sure that we are unleashing American energy and in doing what we can to pull back a lot of the regulations, and making sure that we're focused on growing the economy. And I think how you do that, how it's been proven, it's not just hypothetical, but how it's been proven is by tax cuts. It's by making us competitive with a global economy, with global businesses, and that's how you unleash it. And I think that's what you're going to see out of this bill.
Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, BVD, you mentioned something about your time as mayor, as a city council person, and it's the mayor part that I think makes you unique in many ways. I interview a lot of folks in Congress and not everybody has a background serving as an executive, as a governor, or as a mayor. A lot of them come from a legislative background. And I think there's some nuance in those positions because the responsibilities are different. How has that prepared you or helped you for where you are now and where you perhaps plan to be in the future?
Yeah, it's interesting when you are one of 9 members and you control the agenda. You can force people to take a vote. During meetings, getting an ethics policy passed through my city was rough, but I employed the CEOs that were there to come talk about how they had ethics policies and the benefits that it has, to kind of strong arm some of your members. It's a much different dynamic when you're one of 435. But recognizing the fact that everything is a compromise, and not everybody represents the same kind of district that I represent. I'm in Texas. Our focus is going to be different than somebody from Iowa or somebody from Minnesota or New York or California. Recognizing what those differences are, but also with the ability to say, look, business opportunities, economic opportunities, lack of regulation is the Texas model, and we have to fight for that in D.C. I can't tell you how many times if we had a vote and we had one person who didn't vote against it, that was typically me. A lot of no votes don't hurt as long as you can defend what they are. But, Irving, I'm very proud of the work that we did there. It's a city of about 250,000 people, 8 Fortune 500 companies. It's a powerhouse, and it wasn't always easy. We always had a staff that could tell you how to spend more. You always had people wanting you to increase taxes, and I always fought against it. And I said, look, I remember talking to Kevin McCarthy and saying, I think I'm the only person here who has passed 12 balanced budgets.
Wow.
And it wasn't because you didn't have pressure to spend more. It was because legally we were obligated every year. Yeah. By this date, you have to pass a balanced budget. And I was like, I would love to see that in Congress. Yeah. I always fought for a zero-based budget.
Sure.
As opposed to taking these gigantic, overblown, expanded budgets that we have and trying to figure out how you're going to shave it to control government spending. Start from the bottom up. Defend why you need to spend this per agency. And the work that DOGE is doing, unbelievable. We need to actually codify that. And I've introduced some bills to do that. I've introduced bills to have third-party audits on our agencies because you can.
Are you getting traction?
I'm hoping. Right now we're a little busy trying to come up with a budget, looking at appropriations, before we have to shut down the government. But I'm optimistic that we'll be able to do that. So whether or not it's looking at third-party audits of our agencies, or we're looking at ways to be able to control regulations. So I've introduced bills that would limit regulations and force the agencies. If you're going to add one, it's kind of like codifying. Mm-hmm. You have to take away something that's of equal of cost. So you can't just see these layering upon layerings. And then looking at the level playing out, which is something we just introduced, which is going after China. Because China has figured out every loophole. Yeah. Whether or not it's de minimis or going through other countries that don't have as steep of tariffs and changing the labels. It's no longer made in China, it's made in Mexico, right. Or made in Vietnam. And so going after those loopholes. But you think outside the box, I think, as a mayor. But I love the work that I do in the district. We do things that are different, right? Last week we had a family flying. We had 362 people come from our district up to D.C. Gave them Capitol tours.
Cherry blossoms.
It was awesome. It was beautiful.
It's that time of year.
But we also do a massive job fair in my district. This was as a result of talking to the businesses that said they were having a hard time hiring. Talking to people, just everyday people who had lost their jobs during COVID, who were trying to find new opportunities for increased benefits or increased flexibility or increased pay. So we did this job fair, and the first job fair that we had about 6,000 people come.
Wow.
The last one that we had between 25 and 30,000 people come out. We had over 500 businesses, and they had 22,000 job offerings, and about 30% were six-figure and above jobs.
Nice.
I mean, that it's a huge opportunity, and we work with everybody across the aisle. If you're a mayor and you're in my district, I want to have a relationship with you. Come and help us advertise. Getting people jobs should not be a Republican-only issue. And I would challenge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle across the country, do things like that make a difference in your community, in your district. I don't have to ask, permission. I'm not asking for a bill. I'm not asking for any federal dollars. This is something my staff and I do because it's important.
Love it. Folks, we're on with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. And BVD, last question.
Yeah.
You mentioned you passed 12 balanced budgets as mayor.
Yep.
I know that you haven't done that as a congresswoman because I'm old enough to remember the last time that happened. But guess what? My kids aren't.
Yeah.
And I would love for my kids to see a balanced budget in the United States. What do you think? Is it going to happen?
I keep fighting for it. I've been a member of the Republican Study Committee since I got into Congress, and I've been a member of the Budget Committee. I'm currently chair of the Budget Committee for the RRC and putting together a budget that will get us to a balanced budget. Now the question is, can you get 218 votes in Congress? I'm going to be pressing hard to do that. I think when you're looking at a debt that is about to exceed $37 trillion, when you're spending more on your debt repayment than you are on your defense spending.
Borrowing to pay our debt repayment.
Correct. Countries have gone down when that threshold is met, and we've surpassed it. I think when we sit here, we argue dimes instead of dollars. We have to recognize the fact that this mandatory and discretionary spend that we fight over isn't going to be anything if all of our money is being used to pay down our debt. We have to get there, and we have a budget to be able to do that. We just need to be able to get 218 votes.
Outstanding. We'll leave it there. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from the great state of Texas, thanks for being here. Godspeed to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Amigos, we'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez going into a speed round here. And I see we got calls from South Carolina, from Chicago, Illinois, WLS, WTMA, WGKA in Atlanta, and, of course, our buddy Gil in Manila, Philippines. I want to know, where is Gil? Gil, where are you?
I was answering about 16 bars. The stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas, the prairie sky is wide and high. Deep in the heart of Texas, the sage in blue is like perfume. Deep in the heart of Texas, reminds me of the one I love. Deep in the heart of Texas.
Outstanding, Gil. Now tell me, what are you doing in Texas? Are you still on your U.S. tour? Are you still visiting? What's going on?
Well, I'll be checking into the VA hospital in San Antonio. I kind of need an overhaul. I think we discussed that before.
Yeah.
But I spent the last week in El Paso. I used to live there, and visited Juarez, our friends there.
Oh, yeah, that's where you ended up in jail that last time. Gil, be careful out there. I got to take a pause here, but I wish you Godspeed. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for your service and, of course, for your listenership here over the last 3 decades or more, 4 decades. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you again, but I got to take this pause. Folks, we'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And earlier I had put out a request, an all-points bulletin, because I wanted to know, I needed your help. I need a nickname for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And I think Josh in Atlanta, Georgia on WGKA might have one. Josh, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Valdez. I really appreciate what you do. I'd like to express my condolences to the world for the loss of this Pope. And I always appreciated his words about us being stewards of the planet. So pick up some trash for the Pope. And I do have a nickname for you, although it's rather obvious. And it is simply Jasmine Crock-of-it.
I like it. I think you're on to something. I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna play with it. I may have to tweak it, but I got to see what rolls off the tongue. But it's definitely in the running. Josh in Atlanta, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. Good night. Shout out to WGKA. And I see we have calls from Chicago, calls from Charleston, South Carolina. I probably can only get to one here and then one in the next segment. So let me see. Where do we go? Let us go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina. Go right ahead.
We are living in a material world. And Christy is a material girl with a $50,000 watch, Rich. A $50,000. We got to cut the budget, man, so we can afford Christy a $50,000 watch.
Well, Jerome,
you know
there's nothing wrong with somebody having something they paid for. The problem becomes when we expect the government to pay for things, right? Anyway, thank you for your serenade. There's always a good liberal out there willing to serenade us. Jane in Chicago, I'm coming to you next. Stick with me. All right, amigos, keep it locked right here. We continue with open phones across America. Plus, we're going to have some conversation on the Pope. Father Frank Pavone is scheduled to join us in the next hour, live and national. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It's about 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And here's our phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. This hour, we're going to get into some conversation about the Pope. The Pope has passed away, and we're going to dig into that. But before we do that, I want to talk about some other items because there's plenty going on in the news tonight. Harvard is suing Trump over freezing funding to them. Now, you'd think the university with probably one of the biggest endowments, if not the biggest endowment ever, they're suing the government, saying that they're not getting enough money. Unbelievable. I don't think that's going to go too well. A couple of weeks back, there was a hack of some crosswalks that, you press the button and it says don't walk or walk, don't walk or whatever. But they had put the voice of Elon Musk in one of them. Well, it's happened again, and this time it's a deep fake recording of Jeff Bezos. You can't make this stuff up. That happened in Seattle, of all places. And Meta, the company that owns Facebook, they're now going to use AI to help identify teens that are pretending to be adults. Now, I think this is going to be interesting because every teen I knew, like when my kids were teens, everybody had Facebook, and they were all lying about their age then. So I think it's pretty funny that, they're going to try and identify these teens. They were 21, 10 years ago. What else do we got here? The Army is now reestablishing new fitness standards for U.S. troops. That's a good idea. There goes my dream. I'm not going to get in now, but they want to strengthen their readiness and lethality. Well, this is the goal. Now, before I get into the other thing, I want to remind everybody, Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum. He has announced his immediate retirement. I don't know why it's immediate. I don't know why it's not at the end of next month. I'm stepping down. This stuff gives so much fuel to my conspiracy theory friends that are like, you see, I told you, first the Pope, now Schwab. Things are happening. The dominoes are coming down. It's the end of the world. Wakey, wakey. No. None of that's actually happening. You'll see. You'll see how Yuval Harari or whoever the next pendejo over at the World Economic Forum continues to do exactly what they've done. Coalesce with world leaders and come up with crazy ideas for crazy things. Another thing we talked about a little bit before, and we'll get into it again now. Nadine Menendez, she's the wife of Gold Bar Bob. She has been convicted in a bribery scheme, and that's from today. That's the verdict came in today. So those are some of the things that are going on. Now, I'm going to have some conversation with Father Frank Pavone in a little bit about what happened with the Pope and what we can expect to happen as they plan their next step. Who are the top cardinals that might replace Pope Francis? But first, a quick report on the Pope.
It is somber. This is a sad day for Catholics. They are certainly mourning across the entire country, and then certainly here in New York City, a large Catholic population, certainly, and folks are paying their respects. They are lighting candles. Then also, it's not just at churches. It's not just at formal events like this. The New York Stock Exchange, in fact, also holding a moment of silence earlier this morning when it's normally bustling and trading, and we've been obviously following the stock market a lot this year, but they took a moment as that moment of silence went on there because of the passing of Pope Francis at 88 years old. That is a huge sign and really an acknowledgement of how big this news is here. We spoke with parishioners personally and asked them about the Pope and what he meant to them, and a lot of them felt they knew him almost as if he was the people's Pope.
human life is God's life. It doesn't stop at a border. It doesn't start at a border. God's child is in Mexico, and God's child is in Texas and in New York and in Toronto. And it's a universal.
And that was really echoed over and over again as we talked to folks here. And again, some folks learning the news as we approach them, but others I could tell inside there, sitting in the pews, also crying.
That a report from News Nation. Pope Francis dead at the age of 88. Klaus Schwab retiring at the age of 88. I don't know what I'll be doing at the age of 88, but we shall find out one day, hopefully. Anyway, that's what's going on that front. Then we have some more. Trump is, of course, getting sued by Harvard, so he decided to pull another $1 billion in funding from Harvard. I thought that was great. Here's an interesting story. I mentioned it a little bit before. I'm just going to get back into it a little bit because I didn't really get to the meat of it. But the headline here is illegal aliens are self-deporting. And I thought that's pretty interesting. And, you know, I had a firm belief that this would be the case, right? I think after a while people said, you know what? I don't want to get caught up like Abrego Garcia. I don't want to go to the wrong place at the wrong time. Forget about it. Let me go home, right? So, okay, I get it. That's a thing. There's a couple of stories that are cited right here in this front page magazine piece. Celeste traveled from Peru to the United States 2 decades ago. She was then a young woman of 19 years old and overstayed her tourist visa. So Celeste has made a tough decision. She will continue cleaning offices and saving money for just a few more months to return to Peru by the end of the year. About 100 miles southeast, Maria, also an undocumented immigrant from Mexico, said that after 30 years in the Coachella Valley, she too plans to return to her home country to forge a new life in the western state of Michoacan. Now, that one sounds more like she's retiring after a 30-year career in the United States. That doesn't, to me, sound like she's, too afraid to live here. I mean, I don't think anybody even thinks she's an illegal alien if she's been here for 30 years. Anyway, third story here. Luz Gallegos, executive director of TODEC Legal Center in the Inland Empire, said that her staff members talk daily with folks who are considering leaving. What comes up a lot in the sessions are people saying, prefiero irme con algo que irme sin nada. I'd rather leave with something than leave with nothing. Gallegos said, I'd rather leave. Well, they translated it for me. Very good. And, I mean, I guess I get that. Honestly, I got to give these people credit. I know some people don't, but I just think, I've been to probably the most foreign country I've ever been to is Hungary, right? Only because I've been to other countries, but I could speak Spanish. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Colombia. I can speak Spanish. I can't speak Hungarian, and I don't think it even uses Latin letters, right? I think they use those Cyrillic letters like the Russians. So I really didn't understand a whole lot of anything that, was going on unless it was happening in English. And I can't imagine saying, all right, I'm going there for a conference and then never leaving. I couldn't even imagine doing that for many reasons. Not because it wasn't a desirable place. No, it's a very nice place. But ultimately, it's not home for me, right? So that's very uncomfortable. B, what would I do there, right? So many things come to mind. I just think, man, this would be a very tough scenario. I mean, I guess I find a job, but like an immigrant, going around saying, hi, Rich, I speak English, I speak Spanish. I don't speak Hungarian, so I'm at a big disadvantage there, not speaking the language. I'm sure people who are local to there are going to say, listen, this is Hungary, speak Hungarian, right? Okay, got it. That's likely to happen. But how quickly can I learn Hungarian? I'd have to really put my nose to the grindstone to learn this language. And then I'm not educated in their language. I'm not educated in their country, per se. So that puts me at odds for jobs that I'm likely not going to get. So I'm a contender now for other types of jobs. It seems like such a challenging scenario to be in. And I know that's me in my first world perspective saying, I don't know why people do it. No, I get why people do it. They're facing death and guaranteed poverty. And here they've got a fighting chance with all the opportunity in the world. I get that. I just say I still have to give them credit. I think it's a courageous thing to do in many ways, right? You have to have some courage to go to another country and just overstay a visa and just stay. and then make a career for yourself and find a job. And honestly, it's commendable. I know somebody's freaking out somewhere going, is Valdez on the radio commending the illegal aliens? All I'm saying is it's a tough gig. It really, really is a tough gig. And those who do it, really shows the commitment that they have to being in America. Because, man, I don't know that I would do it. You name the country, I likely would not do it. Just seems like too much to deal with. And then the looking over your shoulder and all of that. You'd have to have a really red carpet invitation from somebody like Biden saying, don't worry, hey, we're not going to prosecute you. We're not going to deport you. Come on, man. Something like that. That'd be the only way. But anyway, I digress. ADHD moment. I want to jump back into this conversation on the Pope. And to do that, we're looking forward to having a conversation with you all, the American people, and our guests coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The world is mourning the passing of the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires on December 17, 1936, Pope Francis was the first pope from the Americas and the Southern Hemisphere. He joined the Society of Jesus in 1958 and was ordained a priest in 1969. Serving as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires from 1998, he became a cardinal in 2001. Following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, he was elected the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, choosing the name Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi.
266th Pope. Man, it's a lot of popes. That is Pope Francis, again, the pontiff, dead at 88 years old. And President Trump weighing in on that. Listen to this.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard. He loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
That is President Trump remembering Pope Francis, and our guest, Father Frank Pavone, president of Pro-Life Vote, director of Priests for Life, president of the National Pro-Life Religious Council. Father Frank Pavone, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Rich, good to be back with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I guess your initial reaction, I know we've known the Pope was sick. I did a Newsmax hit yesterday, and I was shocked that he was out and about, going to the Easter service, wasn't wearing oxygen, despite all the reports I'd heard about his health and how bad his breathing was. He was meeting with Vice President Vance. He was meeting with other people, and he seemed, frail, but in good spirits. And then I wake up today to hear that he had a stroke, and that's it. It was quite a shock to me. Your thoughts?
Yes, it was a shock. We all saw him getting better, and certainly he enjoyed the prayers of many, many people around the world. It's a reminder that, none of us knows the day or the hour that the Lord will call us home. And we mourn his death, and what President Trump did was very, very appropriate, and we're grateful for that. This was a controversial pope, though. There's a lot of mixed emotions because, he sowed a lot of confusion. I think confusion that could have been avoided. He sowed a lot of division within the church, again, that could have been avoided. And I think now that obviously, as we always honor the office of the Pope, and we're grateful for the good that he did do. I had some very good interactions with him myself in the midst of my pro-life work. But we do need to enter now a period of very careful discernment about who the next Pope is going to be. And I believe the next pope is going to have to lead the church through a period of healing and of clarity where there has been confusion from Pope Francis.
Well, this is something I was talking about earlier a couple hours ago. And my thought was, I don't know, and you correct me if I'm wrong, be as candid as you can be, but I believe that there's been I'm going to use the word damage, and if that's inappropriate, forgive me, but I believe there's been a degree of damage done within Catholic theology, or at least the politics within the Catholic Church, that have brought the church closer to the left, liberation theology and whatnot. And I think it's the reason that you're talking about a need for clarity. And with that being said, I know that there are some people that are considered conservative cardinals that are in the potential running, but I don't know if they're conservative enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I don't think we're going to get another John Paul II this time around. But I think that the man who will be chosen in the next couple of weeks will be better than Francis in the sense of what you're saying now. A little bit more of a, well, I would compare it actually to what President Trump has done for America. I mean, the voters rejected woke ideology. They wanted to embrace common sense government, which is what President Trump brings us. And I make the comparison because, the same people that went into the voting booths are also sitting in the pews in the churches. And even though the people themselves don't elect the Pope, the cardinals do, nevertheless, the people in the pews have a voice, they have an influence, and I think they're ready for a change that brings us to a church that can be the church and not be afraid, first of all, to criticize political parties. And I mean, the one that's the most deserving of criticism, of course, is the Democrat Party. They're taking positions that are completely contrary to the church and are not in favor of religious freedom. But also, Rich, the idea that that these popes would not embrace things like, for example, when I see what Pope Francis said over the years about climate change, and gathering people together to have conferences or going to conferences on climate change and giving the legitimacy that a pope's weight would give to something which essentially is a myth. I mean, this is left-wing mythology. And here you have a pope doesn't have to be buying into things like that in order to lead the church. And I think we're going to be seeing a rejection of that when the cardinals vote in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the overall flock within the church isn't looking to any pontiff for direction on climate change. And I could be wrong, right? I might be wrong, but I don't think that's the case. I also don't think it's the case on a number of social issues, but it is the case on others. So I want to talk a little bit more about that when we come right back. Also, there's a list of names that's being floated out there. I want to get your thought on whether this list of names is accurate or not accurate, and we'll do that straight ahead. Folks, we're coming right back with Father Frank Pavone, President of Pro-Life Vote, Director of Priests for Life, President of the National Pro-Life Religious Council, and our guest. We're coming right back with Father Frank Pavone and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
But we also offer gratitude to God for the gift, the gift that he was. We don't call it Holy Father for nothing. He's the father of our family. And there's a death in the family. And we're sad.
All right, amigos, we're getting to your calls momentarily, 833-4-VALDEZ, but I want to wrap up with our guest, Father Frank Pavone. You know Father Frank Pavone over the years as President of Pro-Life Vote, Director of Priests for Life, the President of the National Pro-Life Religious Council, and he's our guest right now. Now, Father Frank Pavone, there's an article I'm looking at in Breitbart that has photos of several people that are potential candidates. One of them
Yes.
being Luis Antonio Tagle and
Mhm.
others. When you look at this list, and again, it's pretty, not exhaustive, but there's several, Cardinal Pietro Parolin from Italy. Let me just give you a couple others. Peter Adro from Hungary. Robert Sarra from Guinea. Let's see, Peter Turkson from Ghana. Matteo Zuppi from Italy. And those are all the names I see on the list that I have in front of me. Does this seem like an accurate depiction to you of who the Cardinals will choose from, or do you think there's like a spoiler going on?
Well, Rich, I think there's good reason why these men are on that list. I know a number of them personally. They are great leaders. They've had a lot of experience, and some of these lists, however, are put together basically name recognition. I mean, we're talking about over 100 people who could potentially be chosen, and I've found over the years. I mean, first of all, two of those names. I mean, I would love to see an African cardinal. I think that many are thinking the same way, that the church in Africa is flourishing, and in many ways it is not tangled up in some of the cultural and political dynamics that you find in Europe and in the Americas.
You're saying, but in Africa they don't have the same kind of drama, so not in a DEI kind of way, but in a free of drama kind of way. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. And, they have a penchant for really teaching the faith clearly and directly, and we're going to very much need that, as we were saying earlier. But I've come to regard the predictions about who might become the next pope in the same way that I regard predictions about how the Supreme Court is going to rule on any particular case. It's really a big area of unpredictability. So anything could happen. But yes, these are cardinals that are, well known, well respected by the other cardinals. It's interesting because these cardinals now, many of whom Pope Francis has appointed, most of whom, of course, that doesn't mean they think like he did or that they would govern like he did. A lot of them are very conservative, and certainly all of them are aware of the things that need to be corrected now in the church and healed. But nevertheless, I hope that they have gotten to know each other to the extent that making this choice now requires, because he hasn't really brought them together that much over these recent years. And, hopefully they've taken their own initiative to get to know about each other. Otherwise, they're going to have to learn pretty fast over the next couple of weeks as they come together in Rome.
So let me ask you, Father Frank Pavone, what is the protocol? I mean, I think most of us have seen this happen where there's these, meetings that go on, and then there's the puff of white smoke at the deliberation. But what really goes into this in deliberating on how we're going to choose the next pope, or how they're going to choose the next pope?
Well, as the cardinals start coming together now to Rome, they'll have a lot of small group meetings, and they will obviously be discussing the election. Now, there's actually a church regulation that prohibits them from electioneering or campaigning, or making promises. Hey, vote for me, and I'll do this for you when I become pope. That's explicitly prohibited. Doesn't mean that some of them don't do that, but they'll have these little group meetings in Rome, and then when they come together formally, there will be periods of debate where they will have these confidential conversations among themselves, gathered all there in the Sistine Chapel, and then they will vote a couple of times each day. They'll have a round of votes, and then we'll know by the smoke whether it's black or white, whether they've come to a decision or not. So it's a fascinating process. It's kind of got a lot of elements of very old tradition. We've done this 266 times now, but it is something that it's not easy. When they make the vote, they announce it publicly, each one of them. And it's like an oath. They say, I publicly declare before God that it is my judgment that this person, and then they name the person, is God's choice, to be the Pope. It's quite a solemn event, marked with a lot of ceremony, a lot of ritual, and a lot of prayer. They come together in a chapel. You think about it. They're electing the Pope in a chapel. And that's not done without good reason.
Father Frank Pavone, I guess a final question to you. Vatican Secretary of State, who is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, 70 years old. He's Italian. He has some conservative positions, according to the New York Post, but he's also backed collaboration between the church and communist China. And some say that he has a, quote, high chance, end quote, of being elected because of his global diplomatic experience. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I know Cardinal Parolin. I've done some work with him, and we've intersected on pro-life matters, and he's very good in that arena. But yeah, that is a very big. It's on the one hand, it does increase, I think, his chances. On the other hand, it is a cause of concern, and we sure would like to see more transparency about what kind of agreements have been made between the Vatican and China. I mean, this is one of the problems, Rich, in the church today, the hierarchical Catholic Church, is that decisions are often made. We're told that things were done, but there's not the kind of transparency that I believe the people of God deserve. So hopefully, this won't be a problem moving forward, but it's good that these kind of concerns are being voiced, because we have to. This is a time for candor. The intervening time between popes, we really got to be candid, and that's what a healthy family does, including a healthy church family. And saying, hey, listen, what are we playing around with here with China? Let's bring everything out onto the table. And let's be transparent about what agreements have been made and about what each of these cardinals think should be done moving forward.
Father Frank Pavone, awesome analysis. Thank you for bringing us up to speed. I really appreciate it. Would you please let everybody know how they find you and keep up to speed with the amazing work that you're doing?
Well, thank you, Rich. Yes, I'm at Fr Frank Pavone on all the social media outlets, Fr Frank Pavone, and then my website, endabortion.us, endabortion.us.
Check them out at endabortion.us, endabortion.us. Father Frank Pavone on all the social media. Sir, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed to you.
Thank you. You too, Rich. God bless.
Thank you. God bless. And amigos, your calls and reactions are coming up right now. Helen, Black Hills, South Dakota, KOTA. Go right ahead.
I was just wondering, I was in the doctor's office all day today, and how did it go for the congressman that flew down to San Salvador? What was the results?
Well, I heard Maxine Waters was over there crying up a storm, clamoring about the release of Abrego Garcia. But I didn't hear anything other than that. I mean, the Venezuelans are accusing El Salvador of all sorts of illegality, saying they're human trafficking because their prisoners are being trafficked. I mean, this is communist talking points at their finest, right? You've got Bukele trying to clean things up, and then you've got Nicolas Maduro saying that he's trafficking prisoners. The whole thing is insane. But to add insult to injury, you've got 4 Democrat congresspeople there making a show. So you know what I'm going to do, Helen in Black Hills, South Dakota? I'm going to take a pause right here, but when we come back, I'm going to play you a clip of the Honorable Maxine Waters. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congresswoman Maxine Dexter here, coming to you from El Salvador. I flew here last night with 3 of my colleagues to demand that Kilmar Abrego Garcia be released. He is being held in violation of a Supreme Court order expressly telling the Trump administration to effectuate and facilitate his coming home. That is being ignored. This is not just a threat to all people in the United States. who could be illegally abducted, detained, and transported internationally against their will. But it is a fact that our president does not recognize the branches of government and the balances of power. This is what we all have been calling a constitutional crisis, yet it is more severe than anything we've seen. We cannot stay silent. We must stay loud. I am here because I refuse to wait for something to happen. We are here to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
The only crisis here is for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, because it's not our Constitution that's in crisis. It's this guy. But I will say, forgive me to the Congresswoman. I misgendered her. I called her Maxine Waters. She's Maxine Dexter. I misgendered her, and forgive me for doing that. And I know I'm using the wrong word, but I thought that was funny. And she's in El Salvador, and she's there demanding the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So, Helen, that's exactly what's going on. Thank you for your call. South Dakota KOTA in the building. I want to continue. Let's go straight to getting a couple of Jasmine Crockett names. Let's go to Danny, Rolla, Missouri, KTTR. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. You had asked earlier about nicknames for Crockett.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little bit older, so some of these go back to Miami Vice days back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. But I thought about with Democrats being kind of, I don't want to do too broad of a stroke, but parasites, I thought about Miami lice. I thought about Miami mice because they're kind of rodents, kind of a rat.
You got more? Wow.
There's an old saying in the country, when you have a crock, somebody says, oh, that's a crock. Well, it's a crock of CRAP.
Yeah, it's a crock of Jasmine Crockett. Got it. Danny and Rolla, thanks, brother. KTTR in the building. Let's go to Dan, Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Go for it.
Hey, Rich, I've been on hold so long I forgot their nickname for Jasmine, but last name I was thinking it was Crackpot.
Yeah, Jasmine Crackpot Crockett. That's not bad. Not bad. I think we're getting closer and closer. We're getting closer to the target. Dan in Chicago, thank you, my brother. Shout out to everybody listening in Chicago on WLS. Let us continue. We're going to go to Jane calling us from Chicago, Illinois, WLS. She was on with us the other day during the speed round, and we didn't have enough time. Jane, welcome back.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Valdez. Thank you for taking my call and question, sir.
Pleasure.
Yes, I would like to know what your impression is and your knowledge is of the legality and in regards to the American Community Survey that my family household received in the mail several weeks ago. We always have, our family have always participated in the 10-year census survey, but the American Community Survey, that's something we've never heard of until several weeks ago when we received it in the mail at our home residence. And I just, from what I understand, in just studying a little bit on the library computer on the Census Survey website, Census Bureau website, and the Federal Commerce Department website, U.S. Commerce Department website, it just seems that 3.5 million U.S. households are legally required. They're chosen at random. And when I did try to call and ask their customer service for Census Bureau what makes what records, do they look at? I guess it's certain public records that everyone has on them, but if it's at random, why is it only 3.5 million? I guess the only question I received was why this is so important, if it's so important as they make it sound to be, and it's legally required of 3.5 million. Why is it not considered discriminatory? Whereas a 10-year census survey, everyone is required to take that, so we always take the 10-year one. And the only answer to my question that I received when I called the Census Bureau and U.S. Department of Commerce basically was that it is about finding out which communities are most disadvantaged and who do not have enough funding or who require additional funding for things like school funding and fire departments, communities who don't have a clinic, local clinic and or local fire department or things like that, and help for local businesses. And we have all those things, and we, there are many government programs that fund all of these things. So I'm still kind of at a loss because we've lived in our community, I'll just say within the Chicago area, for really our whole lives pretty much, and we're here legally. We're not criminals, so we pay our taxes and, bills. And I don't know. I asked them, I said, the greatest concern I have is, what makes us 3.5 million U.S. residents who are legally required to fill this out?
Well, Jane, I don't know the 3.5 million requirement or where that number comes from, but from the little bit of information I've seen about it, it's basically the new name of the 10-year census, right? It replaced the long-form decennial census about 20 years ago in 2005. And I don't know that it's necessarily just to find out which communities, lack certain resources. I think more so it's really just, again, the new version of the 10-year census that's trying to find out, what's what. What is the annual household income, who's doing what, who's making what, who looks like what, that type of thing. Now, as far as requiring it for 3.5 million people and not for the others, I don't know if it'd be discrimination. I don't know if that's a statutory thing or if that's just like a regulation within, the department saying we need to get at least this much for an accurate sample size. Good questions, and I'll see if we could find one of our pros that could answer that, because I'm curious myself. I think you raise a good question, but I don't think it's anything like that. If anything, I'd say it's just more intrusion from the government wanting to know a lot more about our lives. Jane on WLS in Chicago, Illinois, thank you for your call. Amigos, we come right back with the Speed Round.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Robert, Sherwood, Illinois, WLS. Go right ahead, sir. Quickly.
Happy Easter to you, sir, and to
Thank you.
Your family. I have to. My brother gave me this quote, and it wasn't even a quote. It was, we were just talking about what's going on, and this is what he said, and this is what I want to pass on to all of Gen X and Gen Y. Because we're starting to take the reins of power. We grew up watching our parents struggle because the industrial base was gutted from this country, whether it be NAFTA, CAFTA, GATT, whatever it was.
And now it's time for them to make a comeback. I think you might be onto something there. Robert in Sherwood, Illinois. Thank you very much for your call. WLS in the building. Lester in Florida. Crocodile Crockett. Not a bad name. Shout out to WTTB. Tony in Montreal. Yeah, the Kristi Noem thing is concerning. If you can call back tomorrow, I got some thoughts on that. And Frank in Evergreen. I think we need to rethink immigration. I think you're right. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.